It's a really privilege to be here this afternoon, and thank you to Talent Talks. Talent Talks is like a startup that's really convening in interesting conversations. So I think you should actually follow them because I am really excited to be part of this organization that's convening dialogue at an intersection of what is happening not just in the HR space, but how do we actually own this from a talent perspective. So I'm sure you all know who Duxie is. I was with somebody this morning and I said, well, I still think we like a startup, right? We've been in South Africa 12 years. We were privileged to be ranked number one globally for the past 12 years and number two globally. This has been our rankings, and so if you don't know, we're really in Johannesburg, in Bryanston, and it's an amazing organization that convenes, think tanks like Davos, and most importantly, we compete in the executive education space. So my topic today was technology can't replace the human touch. When I think about this, there's so much change that is happening, exponential change. We're hearing robots are going to take over our lives, our jobs are going to be taken over. We're seeing unemployment really high in our country, and we feel the fear regarding technology. Technology versus humanity is a last minute, it may be sounding like a last minute wake up call for all of us. It's a very important conversation that we should not abdicate chunks of this to technology companies or CIOs. We should be in these conversations because it's about us. We need to demand that humanity is very critical for our survival. As I think about this, I think about digital is changing the source of competitive advantages. It's going to happen by scale. We're talking about that we are affected by robotics. This is going to happen by scale, positioning, learning, and capability. But what is it that we need to do to actually optimize for the future now? We see the world is being reshaped. The future of work is being reshaped, not just about how many jobs can be lost, but how many jobs that can be gained. Technology is altering the day of activities, associating to the mix of economy as well as the demand of new skills that are happening every single day in our lives. We see that new jobs are being upgraded. We're also seeing that this may be having a huge impact and a rippling impact to our communities, our societies, that we all are affected by this. We see that the rise of a gig economy is happening quite fast in freelancing. Gone are the days where you're going to be having a job for life. It's not going to happen anymore. You're going to be taking an assignment for 6 weeks, or even an assignment. I've seen this now with some of my colleagues working with companies globally. Assignments are actually for a month. And sometimes people don't want to actually work with that organization because they actually say that in terms of the values, I'm not aligned, I want to actually opt out. The second thing is open sources of ideas and production. We're seeing disruptive new models of employment that are happening globally as well. So all these things are actually happening where our world is being reshaped. So what does this actually mean for us? We're seeing here that the impact of changing technologies, and in many ways, we're seeing that, automation is going to pose a challenge not only to old people, it's also to youngsters, right? We're seeing that the workforce is being disrupted. New labor workforces are coming. So what really needs to happen here? Employees need to rethink the traditional way of actually employment to new pathways of careers. And that means that what we need to look at the existing, what are the roles that are actually evolving, new skills, new job profiles that are happening, and how will the nature of work change for organizations going forward? As I think about this, I always ask myself the question, what does it mean to be human? Technology as created by humans, we create technology, right? We are the inventors of technology. We're going to actually be the inventors of robots. But most importantly, every single technology change is going to actually impact us from our biology, from whether it's, intelligent cars, whether the tools that we live in. These things are going to have a huge impact on our society, right? So a lot can be argued. Do we actually have an unemployed society, or are we going to have an employed society? And I'm sure you're all worried about that right now, right? But there are advantages to this world. So as we think about robots striding into many work forms, we're seeing that social robots, we're seeing social robots, we're seeing robots on the assembly line, we're seeing, chat boxes, like Alexa, we're seeing Amazon using robotics as well. All these things are happening. Nanoscience, we're also seeing where technology is not what we seek, but it's how we seek them. And I think about this, I'm very much hoping that humanity can indeed be steered so that we sit on top of machines and not machines that govern us. We need to be thinking about technology, about how we wanting to adopt technology, not letting technology guide us. I read an article last week, and it worried me because a lot of wars are going to be fought by technology. We don't need people anymore, to fight wars. In the same way, technology can have a positive impact on our society. Wearables are next, in terms of, virtual reality will become so powerful. We'll see the world with a different view. Voice control will quickly become the new normal. In less than 5 years, we'll be replaced by speaking devices. Brain-computer interfaces already are here. So what does this mean? Our world is changing, right? As we see this, smart fridges, I've actually ordered food where my colleagues actually used Alexa via smart fridge to order stuff and being replaced. So this is here already. How many of you have got Alexa at home? Right? How does that work? Wonderful. I have it too. I found anybody in the world, I check what the weather looks like, I get to a location, I play my favorite music. It's wonderful. We're already using it, right? So, flying cars, we saw this with Uber, right? You were seeing driverless cars that are actually happening. There were like 50,000 ordered already, by Uber. So as we think about this, what does this really mean? It means that there are 3 key focus areas that you need to think about as you think about going forward. Firstly, you need to invest in upskilling and reskilling the workforce of today, not tomorrow. There's no future, it's really now, right? The second thing is that you need to adopt to new ways of working already, right? And adapt to an organization of culture and values. I think about me adopting to new ways of thinking and that type of, I think about my nephew that's 9 years old that tells me he's having friends over. And I say, well, I'm sure I'm gonna, have friends, where's your friends? He said, no, I'm playing a game and we, about 30 of us. And I thought immediately, they are all arriving at my sister's home. So I arrive with pizzas. And there he's on this game with 30 people, in his class. And I panicked. And immediately I thought, you are congregating 30 people in a room? And where's these people? And he said to me, this is what I normally do, right? So when I think about our kids and gamification and all this stuff that you worry about, of course it has to be under control, but it's about adopting a new way of thinking about the future. I think the important thing here is as we're thinking about, upskilling and reskilling the workforce, we need to look at how do we unlock the potential and recreate conversations that we have not been creating for a long time. What is it that we need to do from a sense of urgency now and adopt to this culture and behavior in order to upskill ourselves? The idea of upskilling, for the future, what does it really mean? We can't be thinking about, what technology is going to do for us and in terms of losing jobs. We need to think about how do we need to upskill ourselves now for the future. I was actually in the US a few months ago, and 60-year-olds were coding and recreating their jobs because our lifespan is going to expand. We need to think about reinventing ourselves and reorganizing ourselves for the future. And I'm sure you're being worried about what are your children's going to be, what types of jobs are they going to be looking for. The whole myth about going and doing accounting, lawyers are gone. Right? We grow up thinking like this. I mean, I remember my parents said, you have to be an engineer, you have to be a doctor, those were the only careers. Kids are going to have very different paths going forward. So you need to adopt that mindset and create that. In fact, lawyers will not exist in the normal format. So won't accountants. The first board member that's going to be a robot is going to be in 2025. Okay. So as we think about upskilling, you need to unleash creativity. Creativity is a #1 skill. What it suggests that you need to think about what robots can't be creative, humans can. Right? So design thinking is a great way of upskilling yourself in terms of, being creative, design thinking about art and sciences as a subject as well. So not thinking just logical, mathematical, but more arty science. In fact, Google, as an example, employs people in the arts. Have you noticed now some organizations are saying they will not be employing people or they don't take degrees anymore? Right? Those are progressive thinking. So they're thinking about people that have real life experience and opportunity to learn on the job as well. The second thing is about empathy. Robots, they don't have empathy. They're not going to care. Although there's a lot of research saying currently that robots are going to be having feelings and they're going to be sensed, but technically they don't really care. So empathy is going to be also a critical skill going forward, as well as trust. In fact, there's things like trust officers in terms of new jobs going forward. Caregiving is an absolutely big career at the moment. In Japan, where call centers are being replaced, you'll find that the caregiving profession has actually been increased dramatically in that area. The second thing is, we work with a lot of companies and we think about, how do you actually upskill for the future? This is MTN on a graduate program. These are some of the things they're doing on a graduate program, enabling technology and the human touch. You'll see Wipro here in terms of some of the digital skills and the prospects, as well as Bosch. People learn with young and old together. Last year, we did a summer school in December where we had adults learn with kids, the new digital skill. Because a lot of times adults may be scared, but kids have the ability to teach them. So we did that as well. And then SAP, where we use gamification as part of the learning process. Now, these would be the future tools. So you have to get used to it now, going forward. So as we think about, how do you adapt for a new work of reality, these would be the new jobs emerging. Any of you in your organizations have seen these new jobs? There is another one there, Chief Happiness Officer. I'm sure you all want to be Chief Happiness Officers, right? I do. So these would be the new, but the question is your organization thinking about these new jobs? I've seen this where I look at in tech companies, you'll find all these jobs out there, okay? And by 2022, it's estimated by the World Economic Forum, like 54% of all employees that will require upskilling like now, right? Diverse collaboration. We talk about diversity and inclusion. Your workforce is not going to be in the same location. It'll be multiple countries. And look at how we actually assimilate, multi-teams together for collaboration. Right? So a lot of you think, you collaborate across countries. In fact, sometimes in my team, we have, we work across 5 countries. We will talk to the different teams around the world. But look at how teams are put together at the interface of the customer. Very different, right? To optimize the best client value and value creation for an organization. So cultures and values are going to be critical. Robots can't, create values and cultures, but people do, right? And I think as we think about humanity, we need to think about it as a commodity. We shouldn't be thinking about it as something that comes and goes. It's about we should be caring, we should be making sure we actually look out for each other, we should be making sure that as this discussion becomes a critical discussion in every single organization, what is your role to society? What is your role to make a better world? I also think that humans, create robots. Humans create, robots replicate. We can see this, right? But what is it? And therefore, creativity is a key capability that we need in our children, or, including yourselves going forward. So as I think about this, is that I thought I would have a dialogue to say, let us make this a common investment to humanity as much as we're wanting to invest in technology. What is it that we can do as a society to make a difference, making sure that robots don't take care of our lives, or CIOs, or leaving it to some other person in an IT department, but the human skill is a critical enabler for us to progress as a society, progress going forward. Are there any questions that you have about the skills, or we're seeing, or trends that we're seeing in other organizations, and how you feel about humanity versus technology?
Hi, my name is Aaron. You touched on this lightly, and I think it's a very important point that as humans, we are the ones that create robots, and in fact, technology is an expression of humans. What I want to ask, though, is around inclusion. Because if you look at it in the same way as from a financial point of view, financial inclusion, generally, some people you'd find that they're not included because they don't have the knowledge around finance, how it works, etc. So my worry in the future is not more around whether the robots will take over humans, but the inclusion aspect of it. The work that needs to be done now in terms of educating a more diverse spectrum of people so that they can be included in the technology aspect of things going forward.
Good. I think you're absolutely correct. I think biases, right? In terms of this, I've seen with one startup in the Silicon Valley where they actually included, gender and certain biases as part of the robotic processes. But depending who is manufacturing the robot, Dr. Hansen said, when he thought about manufacturing Sophia, the robot, he made his wife, that is Asian, that was modeling, right? And then he said he wanted to make sure she was more representative of the entire world, not just, a certain race, or he wanted a more diverse perspective of Sophia. Although I actually said to him, I think she's actually still very light, and he laughed. He said, well, that was my wife's complexion, So it was modeled around Sophia. But that too was a bias that was included into that, right?
Hi there. So, do you think there's any validity in the statement that technology is going to make us more human, enable us to be more caring, trusting, collaborative, all of those kind of stuff? And what's the risk on the other side?
So I think technology can make our lives much easier around safety. If you were going underground, I've seen this with companions at the moment. and also at Duke Hospital, where, robots have created a more productive, patient care, as an example. But in the same way, we have to be realistic as well. If we don't upskill ourselves with new jobs, it can become destructive. So you could become a robot coordinator or robot manufacturer. Then we play a better role. But we need to upskill ourselves with the new skills going forward in order to become part of, and also we should become part of the ecosystem and not leave it to somebody else, because it can be destructive. Wars are going to be fought with countries with robotics, right?